The Mr. Coffee machine. We all know it. We all know what it represents. We all know what it's all about. We know that we have friends, family members. We used to use the machine ourselves. We didn't think too much of it, especially in the beginning, because we're just cared about making some coffee. But then we went down the rabbit hole of psychoanalyzing everything and wanting to get better at drinking a good cup of coffee, especially where we got from a cafe or from a pour-over device. So we wanted to move away from this machine that we called crap, that we thought was cheap, that didn't do anything for us. We moved away from it quickly. I know at least I did. I never really owned one. But as I went down this rabbit hole of discovering specialty coffee gear and really understanding what it can do for me and what it can do for others, and embracing this whole lifestyle of just loving and embracing coffee for what it truly really is, then I got hit back down the pedestal because I gave myself this wacky, dumb challenge of like figuring out the Mr. Coffee machine, seeing if it's actually possible to actually make good tasting coffee from this bullshit machine. Well, that's what at least I thought. It's not really a bullshit machine when you think about it. It's very simple. Just look at it. Think about it. Just look at the machine. You see what it can do. You can see that the temperatures fluctuates as much as they do. But here's the thing about it. There's magic in that one pour. That single one pour. Just that one pour. And then you think and realize and understand that you can make a good tasting cup of coffee from this device. It's truly, really possible. Let's talk about it.
I hope all is well with you. I just wanted to talk briefly about this actual recipe right here. What it is that it's more so like a homage to the Mr. Coffee machine. In order to, I guess, perfect or understand or use the Mr. Coffee machine the way that it's supposed to, I guess, I went a different direction. At first, it was very hard for me to really understand what the Mr. Coffee machine was doing. The temperatures were fluctuating quite a bit. So what I did was reconstruct it. That's why you saw that I use a Hario V-60 with a Kalita Wave filter. It's a flat bottom, more like what the Mr. Coffee machine actually does. And the thing about it too is that it's essentially a very fast pour. So that's one of the things that I had to like play around with, mimic as much as I could. And the temperature for this particular coffee, it's 200 degrees, but when I put it in the actual gooseneck, it came out to about 185, 190, something like that. And that's what seemed like it was more consistent to what the Mr. Coffee machine was actually producing after the coffee was brewed. So this is a Mr. Coffee pour over recipe, so to speak. And the reason why I wanted to show you a recipe in this form is because the Mr. Coffee machine really does work. In this particular brew, this is a Brazilian coffee that I sell, a medium to dark roast coffee. So those are the best things to use for your brew when you're actually making coffee in this element using the Hario V-60, so to speak. It was a 15-to-1, so 20 grams of actual coffee and then 300 grams of water. And as you saw, this was an interesting one because there's no bloom, there's no real type of agitation like pouring really fast or anything. I wanted it to be more of a consistent type of brew. That's the way the Mr. Coffee machine actually brews. What this coffee actually produces more than anything in majority of the brews that I have tasted with it in its way is that it's a sweeter cup than acidic. So if you want more of an acidic type of coffee, then this is probably not the best method to go with. One pour tends to not give you more of a type of balanced cup. Although it's kind of interesting when I say that, because when you actually brew it in a Mr. Coffee, it actually works really well. It's more balanced compared to this way of going about it. But again, the Mr. Coffee machine doesn't allow you to actually brew the coffee with a bloom, you know? So let's go ahead and taste this coffee. This is more so like a lighter roast, but let's just go ahead and taste it and see what we taste right now. It's more sweet, more cocoa flavors. This coffee does tend to have some acidity on it, but I'm not really tasting it usually. One of the biggest things that I wanted to make sure that we understood about this particular recipe is that for the most part, when we're dealing with extraction and flavors, we have to understand that if we do one thing versus the other, that we're going to get more so that thing. Meaning that, okay, if we do a certain type of pour technique or agitation when we're actually brewing the coffee, we're gonna tend to probably get more of a sweetness or acidic type of tasting coffee. So those are some of the things that we have to realize, that there's gonna be drawbacks, or gonna be takeaways, or gonna be things that we're looking for in a coffee. It's not necessarily saying that it's bad or whatnot, but that's the thing that we have to realize when we actually brew a cup of coffee in this manner. Me personally, to actually bloom the coffee for 30 to 45 seconds and then go ahead and do a couple of pulses within my brew. In this case, I couldn't really do that just because I was trying to actually mimic as much as I can of what the Mr. Coffee machine actually does. It's kind of cool though that, you know, it's one of those things where we think about it, it's like, okay, Mr. Coffee machine is a shit coffee maker. But in truth, one of the things that I realized the past month or so is that it actually does brew a good cup of coffee. I guess the thing that I'm getting at right now is that we have to understand our gear. We have to understand what we're working with. And once we understand that, that's gonna be the biggest lessons of how to actually brew a good cup of coffee. And we have to know that we're gonna probably get more of one thing versus the other. And the beauty of like learning different tips and tricks when we're brewing coffee is that we can kind of mimic, present the coffee in the best light that we want to for that particular moment. That's the beauty of brewing coffee. So is the Mr. Coffee machine shit? No, it's not. But this is more so like a homage, giving back to the Mr. Coffee machine, understanding the machine. And this particular recipe helped me understand the machine even more so in order to make a good cup of coffee. So like I said, let's go ahead and recap right now. This coffee was brewed at 180 to 185 degrees Fahrenheit. As you saw, it was one pour, no bloom whatsoever. It was a 1:15 ratio. So 20 grams of coffee actually inside of the Hario V-60 with a flat bed. And as you saw, it was a consistent pour. The pour was not fast, it wasn't slow, but it was consistent. Pretty much almost at the same velocity as what was going out of the actual vessel. This was a total of 300 grams of water going inside the cup. And this recipe really works really well if you want more so like a sweeter type of cup of coffee. You have to watch with the extraction though. I highly recommend that you do not use a, so to speak, fast filter. I do recommend that you use like a normal filter here, so you're able to extract as much of the coffee as much as you can, because it's still a relatively fast brew. I really did enjoy this cup of coffee. Will I do this all the time? No. Probably prefer a more balanced type of cup, some acidity coming through, playing around with the sweetness here and there. Yes, but it still really works. And again, this recipe is more so another tool that you can have in your toolbox in order for you to kind of mimic, play around with, gauge, or experience your coffee in a different light. And again, this is a homage, a tribute back to the Mr. Coffee machine. So it does actually work. Will I say to do a one pour all the time? No, but again, just play around with it, have fun, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.